In the early hours of a cold autumn morning in 2021, the neighbours of young mother Clare Ingalls were awoken by her boyfriend.
He was shouting, saying, "She's fallen down the stairs, she's fallen down the stairs. Help me, I need help."
The Good Samaritans found Clare almost lifeless in her home.
The neighbours rush in and they find Clare's partially clothed body in the bedroom. She's obviously incredibly injured.
Clare's parents were also woken that morning to learn of an unfolding nightmare.
I shouted at the first policeman I seen at the top of the stairs, "Is she alive?" He said, "She was 5 minutes ago."
Clare's boyfriend was 26-year-old Christopher McGowan, and his version of events just didn't add up.
Falling down the stairs does not result in all of your injuries being concentrated on your skull. It doesn't result in signs of strangulation.
Christopher McGowan was lying, and he would eventually be exposed as one of the world's most evil killers. Despite a notorious and well-known history of criminality, in November 2021, Christopher McGowan was released from prison and placed in the home of his girlfriend, 28-year-old Clare Ingalls.
She lives on her own. She's vulnerable. She has a young child. McGowan is known to be taking drink and drugs. He's got convictions for domestic violence.
26-year-old McGowan had convinced a Scottish court that the relationship would help him change for the better.
I am absolutely astonished that this man was bailed to this young woman's address. They'd only been in a relationship for a number of weeks, and this has got domestic abuse written all over it.
In the aftermath of her murder, Clare's family were left wondering why a violent thug was bailed to their daughter's home.
It's just a horrible thought to think, if things had maybe been done right, she would still be here. And that's hard to accept. We just don't want another family going through even an ounce of what we've gone through.
This killer's story begins in the small city of Stirling in central Scotland. Christopher McGowan was born on the 18th of May, 1995.
I don't think he was maybe given the best chance in life.
He started offending really young. He had his first conviction at age 14, and he would commit any kind of crime, somebody who you might describe as absolutely lawless.
There are 3 assaults, 1 incident of carrying a knife, 1 incident of dealing heroin. There is also a conviction which is a breach of the peace with a domestic aggravation. So quite a lengthy and varied criminal history.
In 2011, 16-year-old McGowan started dating a 14-year-old girl. They would eventually move in together. But it was a far from happy home. McGowan's girlfriend twice reported him to the police for assault.
McGowan had quite a few convictions, one of which was a domestic assault on his girlfriend. We also know that an allegation had been made that he had actually kicked his girlfriend on another occasion, but the police decided that there was insufficient evidence at that time for him to be charged.
Despite all this, the couple had a child together, but fatherhood did nothing to stop McGowan's destructive behaviour.
So McGowan is misusing Valium, misusing alcohol, drinking excessive amounts.
McGowan's unstable behaviour led to him receiving 39 convictions for a wide range of offences.
We have domestic assaults, robbery, attacking strangers for money, but also attacking a police officer with a knife. So this guy does not care. He uses violence like his first language.
He was known locally as Kicky McGowan, that was his nickname. He had a reputation in the town as someone who would cause bother, cause disruption.
Just a few streets away from Christopher McGowan lived Clare Ingalls, who was also born and bred in Stirling.
She was just such a good toddler. She was a girly girl. She was always singing, dancing, just loved her gran and granddad. And then Emma came along and, she was just a brilliant wee sister. She just, she just loved her.
From everyone that I've spoke to during my time covering this case, they've all described Clare as fun and bubbly. They said, she didn't have a bad bone in her body. She would do anything for anyone.
She went off to study childminding at university. To all intents and purposes, a wonderful young woman.
Clare had been in a loving relationship, and in 2014, when she was 20, she'd given birth to a baby son.
Clare's life was basically for Robbie when Robbie arrived.
Oh, aye. He was the making her. He really was. And everybody you speak to in Stirling, she had him immaculate. Her whole life was mapped around Robbie.
But in 2017, tragedy struck the young family.
When Clare's son was quite small, his dad passed away in some kind of road traffic accident.
Clare and Robbie were left alone and had to make a new life for themselves, with help from Clare's parents.
Basically, it was the three of us. I was, like her best friend. So she'd be down for her tea, maybe Tuesday, Thursday. Then Ian would come in on Friday. I would get him sorted for the weekend and I'd go up there and come back down on Sunday night. She'd be going to her bed and I'd be right, I'm away down the road.
Clare also had the support of her friends, one of whom had just had a second child with her partner, Christopher McGowan.
She went, they've had a wee baby and I've got a parcel coming and I'm going to go over. This beautiful wee suit came, the wee sleep suit, the beautiful bag and the card, and away she went. So she came back and she went, she says, I don't know why she's with him. He's so bad to her. She could do a lot better. So that was the very first of him ever getting mentioned in Clare's life.
Despite his growing family, McGowan's run-ins with the law were far from over. In 2019, he was in trouble yet again.
McGowan is involved in a dangerous driving incident where police are chasing him.
McGowan was charged and bailed. Early in 2020, he was arrested for a violent, unprovoked attack.
He had assaulted and beat up a man and stole his wallet.
Once again, McGowan was bailed. By August 2021, McGowan's relationship with his former partner was over, and he had his eye on someone new.
Clare encounters Christopher McGowan in the street in Stirling, in Scotland, where they live, and he yells at her across the street.
She went, I was coming up the road with Robbie from the school, and Christopher McGowan shouted on me.
McGowan had been involved in an incident that had resulted in him being injured.
She says, he's done something to his leg. So he had this leg all strapped up, and then she says, I was just mortified in front of Robbie. I couldn't wait to get away from him. He's just a bad one.
And that's because she was familiar with who he was and some of the things that he'd done.
Clare and her mum spoke almost every day. And soon Fiona received a phone call that she would never forget.
She went, I've actually got something to tell you. I'm in a relationship now. So I'm saying, who? And she went, Christopher McGowan. And I went, Kiki McGowan? And she went, yeah. And I went, oh, be quiet. The way Clare was, she had a wicked sense of humour. We both did. And then she went, Mum, I'm serious. I swear on Robbie's life, I'm in a relationship. And Ian just said, that's it then. That's it. Just hang up the phone. If that's who she wants as a father figure for Robbie, that's it.
Clare's parents were horrified their daughter was dating a man with such a violent criminal history.
It was just devastating. Absolutely devastating.
She couldn't understand how that happened so quickly. But I think that McGowan had spotted Clare, targeted Clare.
She was not the type of person that you'd have thought that would have wanted to have been in a relationship with McGowan. They were chalk and cheese.
Fiona and Ian's concerns were valid, but they had no idea the relationship would have such a tragic outcome. In just a few months, Clare Ingalls would be lying on the floor of her own home, fighting for her life. By the late summer of 2021, 28-year-old Clare Ingalls had begun a relationship with serial offender Christopher McGowan in Stirling, Scotland. In early September, he was recalled to jail for breaching his bail conditions. Despite this, Clare remained loyal to her new partner.
Clare's devotion to Christopher McGowan was so great that she visited him in jail.
On the 19th of September, 26-year-old McGowan was back in court and pled guilty to a 2019 dangerous driving charge, as well as a breach of bail conditions. With sentencing deferred for a month, McGowan used Clare as an excuse to get himself released from jail.
He's got this relationship, very, very new relationship with Clare, but he's already using that, leveraging that to say, look, I've got somewhere to go.
She had a huge heart, and I think she thought she could change him. You know, I'll bring him in, he's homeless, and I'll make him part of my wee family. And she was just looking for love.
McGowan's lawyer told the court he was motivated to reduce his drinking and drug-taking.
They said that McGowan was likely to become a reformed character, not wanting to take drugs and Valium because he was in a stable relationship with Clare. But the reality of things is they don't normally work like that. Everything that he's done since he was 14 till he is 28, 14 years, is she really going to be the person that we can say is going to change his character, the way he lived his life? Highly unlikely.
No arguments were put forward to oppose his release, and McGowan was bailed to Clare's address. The couple had been in a relationship for barely a month.
What on earth were they thinking when they bailed him to that address with a young, vulnerable mum with a young child, this seasoned career criminal with a violent past?
She may not have known it, but Clare was sharing her home with a ticking time bomb. Christopher McGowan was a violent man trying to kick a drug habit.
When a person who is dependent on two substances promises to stay away from these substances, the body would have gone into a severe withdrawal syndrome. We would have experienced agitation, anxiety, hallucinations, paranoia. Nobody around him would be safe.
There were growing signs that Clare had entered a toxic partnership.
The relationship with McGowan and Clare started way too quickly, and this is a key predictor of coercive control. her friends also said around this time was that whenever she was with him, she changed. She was quieter, she was more withdrawn, she was less bubbly.
She is buying him presents she can't afford. She's running up debts that she also can't afford. Anything to keep him happy.
There were occasions when she would message her mum and ask for money, and the thing that her mother found strange was the nature of the language used.
When Fiona would text her, it would be McGowan texting back because he couldn't spell, and Fiona would go, "That's not Claire texting me back."
McGowan had gone in there like a vulture, asset stripping absolutely everything that Clare had. She was trapped at this point. She can't throw him out now, and that's what he would have been looking for all along.
Fiona's anxieties escalated when she picked Robbie up from his boxing class. Claire had always kept her son looking smart.
He had a wee vest top on, he had a pair of joggers that were filthy, and a pair of welly boots, pair of Wellington boots. And I said, "Where's all your gym stuff? Where, Nana's taking you boxing?" He says, "Mummy says they're all in the wash."
Fiona pretended that the class had been cancelled.
There's no way in this earth that I was taking him down to the boxing dressed the way he was. Absolutely appalling, absolutely appalling. I could regret.
This wasn't the only time Fiona noticed a decline in how Claire cared for Robbie.
Any time he was coming down to us, she would always have his bag and everything was all ironed and smelling lovely and his wee teddy bear and everything. McGowan moved in, it was a carrier bag and the stuff was stinking of smoke.
What you want to do as a parent in this situation is to get on your white horse, be a hero, run in, rescue the daughter and take them home with you. The parents are left in a position where they've actually got to be using covert tactics and playing the long game.
And we really thought us drawing back for Clare would have been enough for her to think, "Oh, this is bad." And we really did think we'd get through to her that way.
But Claire became even more committed to her relationship.
By the beginning of October 2021, Claire announced on Facebook she was in a relationship, and it was with Christopher McGowan.
McGowan, on bail at Clare's flat, received his sentence for the high-speed police chase.
He receives a community payback order and a curfew that he should remain indoors between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. And we know that on the 25th, social services actually attended the address to carry out their inquiries.
We don't know if that visit was to speak to Clare or to speak to Christopher McGowan, but they were acting on concerns that had been raised to them.
There was no answer. Claire continued asking her mum for money. It was always a request for £25.
I found out this £25 that she was always asking for, that is what a bag of Valium costs. So she's obviously been getting the money for me, and that's when I stopped it.
Fiona drove to Claire's flat to confront her.
She came down to the car, and of course I'm shouting at her and saying, "This has got to stop. Stop phoning me for money." And then she's going, "It's okay, Mum. Honestly, I swear I'll never ask for money again." And she went, "I love you." And I'm saying, "I love you too."
Claire walked back to her flat.
And then she just turned and said, "Keep your money. I'm not interested in blah, blah." And when I looked up at the flat, he's at the window, and I thought that's for his benefit. And this was the turning point where we knew she was being coerced.
Fiona had no idea that this would be the last time she would see her daughter alive. The following day, the 27th of November, while Robbie had a sleepover with his grandparents, McGowan and Claire went for a night out in Stirling.
Claire and McGowan had been out in town and having a few drinks. McGowan was breaching the terms of his curfew and his bail conditions by being in different parts of Stirling and being out past a certain time.
They decided to take a taxi from the town centre back to Clare's flat.
At about 9 o'clock, a cab picks up McGowan and Clare.
McGowan was in front with the taxi driver and Clare was in the back. And the taxi driver was able to say the way he was talking to her in front of him was quite disturbing.
He was being awful to her, threatening and abusive.
He was turning round and swearing at her.
He's shouting at her. He's telling her, get me the alcohol. She then goes to a local shop. At about 10 o'clock, she goes in, she purchases items which, to all intents and purposes, are items that McGowan wants. And the CCTV shows her leaving the shop. They then go back to the home address.
These CCTV images are the last recorded images of Clare Ingalls. Once inside Clare's flat, the young woman was alone with her drunk, abusive boyfriend.
It's about 5 o'clock that morning when a neighbour finds that there is McGowan knocking on the door, and he basically says, I think I've killed Clare.
Two neighbours then ran with him across the street. He was shouting, saying, she's fallen down the stairs, she's fallen down the stairs, help me, I need help. And when they eventually got into the house and ran up the stairs, they found her in her bedroom, partially clothed and totally beaten.
We see a collection of bruises. We see bleeding. We see injuries consistent with being stricken with blunt force. And we see a lot of accumulated blood. We also see black eyes, and we see petechial hemorrhages inside the eyes, which are very consistent with strangulation.
The bloody scene and her injuries didn't seem to match up with McGowan's story that Clare had fallen down the stairs. And when the emergency services arrived, he told them that Clare had taken an overdose.
One of the neighbours then runs outside to confront him because he doesn't believe what he's told him and that she's fallen down the stairs. Firstly, because she is up the stairs, and secondly, because she is so badly beaten. And the two of them then got into an altercation outside the property while the other neighbour was trying to perform CPR.
Back inside the house, Clare was not breathing. As paramedics fought to save her life, they would soon discover that nothing about her condition was accidental. It was becoming more and more obvious that Clare Ingalls had been violently attacked. In the early hours of the 28th of November 2021, Clare Ingalls' parents heard the first reports that something had happened to their daughter 5 miles away in Stirling.
At 5:10 in the morning, I got wakened out of sleep, and it was the knock on the door.
It was one of Clare's neighbours.
She just came to the door and just said, look, you need to get up the road. And I said, why? And she said, we think Clare's been murdered.
Clare's young son, Robbie, was staying with his grandparents at the time.
Put Robbie through to our close neighbour next door. I made sure he was safe, and we just said, look, Mum's poorly, we're just going up to see what's wrong.
Fiona and Ian's first thoughts went to Christopher McGowan, the boyfriend they suspected of abusing Clare.
We thought actually it was going to be a good thing. We thought he slapped her, she'll now know how bad he is, she'll come back to the family, everything will be fine.
But as they approached Clare's flat, it became clear things were far more serious.
I jumped out the car, shouted at the first policeman I seen at the top of the stairs, is she alive? He said, she was 5 minutes ago.
In fact, Clare's injuries were critical, and paramedics were battling to save her life. As they checked her airways, they discovered an obstruction.
There was a wet wipe that was forced down Clare's throat, which meant that when the medical team were trying to render assistance to her, they couldn't get the breathing apparatus in.
She was warm to the touch, so her heart hadn't been stopped for long.
As Christopher McGowan was led away from the scene, Ian and Fiona came face to face with their dying daughter's toxic boyfriend.
Then they brought him out and he walks towards me.
Then getting taken away in the police car, and then we still had to sit for another 20 minutes. As soon as the paramedic came out the flat and she was heading down to the car, we just knew.
Watching the ambulance staff leave, the Ingalls realised the fight for their daughter's life was over.
Sadly, at 5:41 that morning, Clare Inglis is declared dead.
And I said to the policeman, I want to see my daughter. I'm going up to see my daughter. He just went down on his knees and just went, it's cruel to be kind, but I'm not letting you go up and see her. And that's it. I can't let you up and see her.
Despite his claims that it was a tragic accident, McGowan was arrested on suspicion of Clare's murder. Investigators began to gather forensic evidence from the scene and the suspect.
Prior to the interview, the officers made him aware that they were going to be taking swabs.
Did he punch her? Did he touch her? Did he scrape her? Evidence from his hands need to be collected so that we determine whether DNA was transferred between him and Clare. McGowan is well aware of the possibility of this transfer of DNA, so he uses the blanket he has near him to wipe his hands, to try hard to remove any evidence of Clare on his body.
When questioned, McGowan had little to say about how Clare had come by her devastating injuries.
During the interview, he said he was only trying to save his girlfriend's life.
But as further witness statements were collected, they showed the variety of different explanations McGowan had given to neighbours and paramedics.
He started saying, oh, she'd fallen downstairs. She took an overdose of Valium.
Falling down the stairs can be lethal. However, it does not result in all of your injuries being concentrated on your skull, or most of them. You would have superficial bruises all over your body as you roll down the stairs, and you will also have bleeding throughout your body. It doesn't resolve in signs of strangulation, and obviously not involving a wet tissue being shoved down your throat. This is a scenario that makes absolute no scientific sense.
There were also signs of an extreme and violent struggle.
Her acrylic nails were found scattered around her body, and this suggests to me that Clare fought for her life until the very end.
At one point, McGowan claimed that he couldn't remember what had happened.
The question I'd ask myself, which one is it? If you can't remember what happened, then why have you given those other 3, 4 accounts as to why she may have died? It just didn't make sense.
Detectives didn't believe Christopher McGowan's lies and promptly charged him with Clare's murder. On the 30th of November, McGowan appeared at Falkirk Sheriff's Court, where he entered no plea and was remanded in custody. In the meantime, Fiona and Ian had to break the news to Clare's 7-year-old son, Robbie.
We just sat him down and I just said, we've got really bad news. I said, Mum didn't make it. You know, she died at the hospital. She's passed away. And then he went away up the room, slammed the door, and he just broke his hat.
With no straight answers from McGowan, detectives returned to the crime scene to build a picture of what may have happened to Clare that night.
Looking at the flat, there was a lot of damage that happened that night.
There was blood that was found on the ceilings, on the walls.
There was blood on the fridge. There was blood on the skirting boards. There was blood in the living room.
but there was also historical damage there.
There were some puncture holes on the walls, as well as dents on the refrigerator of the apartment, of the flat. It's really important to understand these don't happen in normal life. These are signs of aggression and violence.
There were cigarettes stumped out in the carpet, and it was untidy and unkept. But from speaking to Claire's parents and her friends, she was very house proud, kept her house and her son very clean, neat and tidy.
The next step in the investigation was a post-mortem, which detailed the horrific injuries Clare had suffered just before her death.
Clare had received 76 individual injuries, which would imply that it was a sustained and prolonged attack.
There was practically no part of her body that was uninjured.
The pathologist also notes burn marks at her fingertips, on her nose, her ears. This is a person who's laying there being tortured by her killer, being burned, as if somebody's saying, you see, you've deserved this.
She had small marks on the outer of her skin and different parts of her body, which they thought might have been caused by a screwdriver or something similar.
We have a severity and a number of injuries that suggest that our killer was really determined to make sure that Clare does not walk away alive. It doesn't take 76 separate injuries to kill a person who is smaller, shorter, and weaker than you. This killer was on a mission.
While Ian and Fiona Ingalls tried to comprehend the loss of their daughter, investigators prepared their case against Christopher McGowan. It would be 2 long years before he would be in the dock, and no guarantee he'd be found guilty. In the early autumn of 2023, 28-year-old Christopher McGowan's trial for the murder of his girlfriend Clare Ingalls began at the High Court in Stirling.
The trial started on the 20th of September, and it had been an almost 2-year lead up to the trial date.
It was the first time the Ingalls had seen Christopher McGowan since the night of their daughter's murder.
I was want to jump that glass, and and he's just sitting there, and he did not once show any remorse.
McGowan, ever brazen, actually wore a designer watch that Clare had given him in the dock.
The prosecution called on the neighbours who tried to save Clare's life that night, as well as the taxi driver who'd heard a drunk McGowan abuse and degrade her.
The character witnesses who were called up to give evidence on how people had heard McGowan treat Clare in day-to-day life, how he spoke to her.
Evidence was offered to prove that McGowan was financially coercing Clare.
He pawned a PlayStation that her son had, as well as a watch that she was given as a 21st birthday present.
We found out odd invoices that all boys stuff, designer shoes, designer trouser, everything.
A major part of the prosecution's case against McGowan were the post-mortem results, which came as a shock to Clare's mother and father.
Fiona and Ian Ingalls didn't really know the full extent of what had happened to Clare prior to going into trial, really. They had just been told it was head trauma.
Fiona was undergoing chemotherapy during the trial, and she was at home when evidence of Clare's injuries was presented.
My friend Maggie contacted me and she said, "My heart bleeds for you, I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking, what? And then I says, "Oh, I'm at home, Maggie." And she went, "Oh, well, don't click on the link."
Fiona's friend had sent her a link to a news article.
And then when I clicked on the link, and of course the front page was going to be Clare Ingalls tortured and 76 injuries, I went into like taking a panic attack, and then Robbie said, "What's wrong, Nana?" And I went into the kitchen and, I was physically sick because that was the first of me knowing how bad it had been for her. To know how callous he's been, how sadistic he's been and the things he's done to her, and nobody deserves it. I'm not saying anybody deserves it, but Claire certainly never.
Imagine her pain and fighting she was doing when she was fighting for her life.
Not long into the trial, McGowan did something that almost caused proceedings to collapse.
On the third day of the trial, he turns up intoxicated. He isn't even prepared to take the trial seriously.
He came staggering in the door, and I kind of looked and I thought, he looks like he's drunk.
McGowan had allegedly taken at least double the amount of anxiety medication provided by Barlinnie Prison, but also may have accessed drugs illegally whilst behind bars.
The case was adjourned for that day. He could have said, well, I wasn't in any fit state and I didn't understand what was being said during the trial, and that would have been even worse. He probably could have gotten off.
When they were taking him out, and that's when he turned and he went, right up to Ian and I's faces.
Once the prosecution had made its case, it was the defence's turn to present evidence. They did not deny McGowan had played some part in the injuries Clare had sustained.
McGowan, at the time of the trial, offered the defense of self-defense. Therefore, we had to assume that a smaller, more petite person, Clare, was attacking him, and he felt threatened enough to have to defend himself by killing her. He has no defense injuries whatsoever that would suggest that Clare tried to even attack him.
But ahead of closing speeches, the defense dropped the theory of self-defense and instead focused on McGowan's state of mind.
McGowan decides that he's going to put forward a scenario as to why he turned to drink and drugs.
I had to resort to alcohol and drugs to cope with the abuse in my childhood.
He's trying to say, again, none of this is my fault.
After a week-long trial, it took the jury just 2 hours to find Christopher McGowan guilty of murdering Clare Ingalls.
I shudder to imagine what Clare's last minutes were like. It was beyond sadistic. McGowan has shown not a flutter of emotion, not a hint of distress, not a shadow of remorse. It is a truly horrifying story.
On the 25th of October 2023, McGowan was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years imprisonment.
They actually shuddered, they actually shook and shuddered. And I thought, good, it's actually hitting you now that you're going away for a long time.
With no admission of guilt from McGowan, Clare's parents have been left wondering why he killed their daughter in such a brutal and relentless attack.
I do honestly believe that Clare was going to fling him out, and this is why he's reacted.
Looking at Christopher McGowan in the hole, an early career criminal who uses violence like it's punctuation. He then kills somebody. He then tries to blame that person. He's not going to improve in prison. He is going to get worse in prison.
I don't think he's going to come out reformed. He's going to be in there till he dies. That's what we're hoping, and hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later.
A vicious man had been removed from the streets, but for Clare's family, many questions are still unanswered.
Clare's family have been seeking an independent review into the circumstances as to how McGowan was allowed to be living at Clare's address.
Clare's case raises a lot of questions. There are questions about how different public systems communicate with one another. There are questions around people with lengthy criminal histories being released on bail. There's a whole host of questions they feel need to be answered.
And all I'm wanting is an independent inquiry to find out, because I've got everything back from the social and it doesn't sit with me right.
4 months after the trial, it was revealed that social services had raised a concern that McGowan was living with Clare 6 weeks before her murder.
From my perspective as an SIO, or even as a dad, put it simple as that, I would be frustrated that the powers that be had an opportunity to do an effective risk assessment as to whether or not an individual should be remaining with someone else who was vulnerable. And everything was there for them to see that that was not the right decision to be made.
We just don't want another family going through even an ounce of what we've gone through. If I think I could even just save one woman for going through, or man, for going through what we have gone through, it's just, it would make it all worthwhile.
The main reform that they're calling for is for a review of bail conditions and for anyone with any sort of violent conviction to not be placed in the home of a child or a vulnerable person. They're also in favour of a domestic abuse register. So anyone who has any kind of domestic conviction would go on a domestic abuse register.
As they continue their campaign for justice, Ian and Fiona still wish they could have done more to prevent Clare's tragic murder.
It's hard to accept as well, getting told that I did the exact thing that he wanted. He wanted to break the family away from so he could just get her to herself. And if I had did the opposite and just went in the house and just grabbed him, flung him out of the house, it could have been a totally different scenario, but I thought I was doing the right thing.
We've got a memorial bench in Riverside for her as well, facing up to the Wallace Monument, because we had picnics there, so I just felt it was quite fitting, you know, have it in Riverside that, you know, you can sit on the bench and it's got the cherry blossom and each side is beautiful. So we can go down there and get a wee bit a release, just thinking, you know, she's at peace.
The love with which Clare's family remember her is in stark contrast to the impression left by her murderer.
It takes a special kind of person, distorted personality, deranged person, to deliver such a sustainable, continuous, torturous attack to a smaller person whose last few weeks and months in life were to help you. This person is a vicious, determined, evil killer.
A violent repeat offender who was no stranger to the courts or the prison system. McGowan's final horrific act of violence against Clare Ingalls revealed his true sadistic nature. He took the life of an innocent mother and left her young child an orphan. There is no doubt that Christopher McGowan is one of the world's most evil killers.